Good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 338 of the Prancing Pony podcast, where the Lockholes Diet is proving to be quite effective in hobbit weight loss plans.
Yeah, the problem with fad diets, though, is that they're just not sustainable long term.
Has Old Flour Dumpling tried Ozempic yet?
Not yet.
No.
They're having trouble getting it in the Shire right now.
I bet they are. That's true. Yeah.
Give it some time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, folks, I'm Shawn Marchese, the Lord of the Mark, and I'm here with the man of the West, who doesn't need any feeding up before he could look the part of mayor, Alan Sisto.
Ooh. I'm not sure, though, that I could beat the political machine that is old Will Whitfoot. I mean, clearly he's got like a Chicago turn-of-the-century thing going on there. I don't want to mess with that guy. People end up dead, I think. Well, not dead. Hobbits haven't killed each other on purpose.
Yeah,
so
they love that guy there. They really do.
They sure do. Well, folks, join us as the labor of repair goes on apace in the first of our 3 episodes on the Grey Havens, the final chapter of The Lord of the Rings. I don't even want to say that.
I can't believe it's actually here.
I know.
How did we get here?
How is that possible? Oh, man.
I don't know. Well, no matter how you got here, folks, you are all welcome here in the common room. At the Prancing Pony podcast, we are reading and talking our way through Middle-earth with plenty of speculation and bad jokes along the way.
Clearly. Now, we do love our deep dives into the lore, discussing our favorite themes, and a whole lot more.
But we try to keep it light and fun, like a couple of friends chatting at the pub. And we're glad you've joined us.
And I'm sure you'll be glad you joined as well. But before we get to tonight's chapter discussion, it's time for a segment that we haven't had for a little while. It's time to take a look at some kingly gifts. Today we're going to take a look at 2 different books, or to be precise, actually, 1 book and 1 set of books. Both of these are reissues or new editions, and we want to clear up any questions about each of those. And first up, I want to look at a new book called The Maps of Middle-earth. It's released in April of this year. The text is written by Brian Sibley, and the maps and illustrations are from John Howe.
Now, this is a single volume that brings together a lot of work from these 2 creators over the years. So let's spend some time going through the history of these volumes. Actually, we'll do that with the help of Brian Sibley himself from the preface to this new volume. That's where he explains that this new book, and I'm quoting here, is the outcome of a 30-year journey, beginning in 1994, when John Howe and I were commissioned to create a publication featuring a color, fold-out version of the map of Middle-earth, which adorned The Lord of the Rings.
Ah, 1994. Feels like so long ago. Like half our audience wasn't even alive yet, were they?
No, that's true. Wow, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a year I met my wife. Well, and that's the year I started dating my wife. Yeah.
Good. That was actually 2 years after I got married. And I was actually beginning graduate school.
Wow. Congratulations to you. I thought
you already knew I was ancient, old as dirt, whatever you want to call it.
There is that. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. I started law school in 94. And,
Amazing.
John Howe was drawing maps with Brian Sibley. I think he got the better end of the stick on that one.
Definitely.
So Sibley goes on to say that he wrote the accompanying gazetteer. There's a word. I learned, by the way, that's a geographical index, by the way. That's what a gazetteer is.
I have seen that word before. Yeah, I've seen it in an atlas, like a gazetteer and atlas.
But I didn't know that's what it specifically connects to, but very cool.
I don't think I did either, honestly.
So I actually have this map book, and it's called The Map of Tolkien's Middle-earth, and it's basically a cardboard sleeve with the fold-out map attached and the gazetteer as a little booklet. Now, the next year, in 1995, Sibley and Howe produced a follow-up volume to that. It was called There and Back Again, The Map of the Hobbit. Obviously, it had a map of, I'm sure you're as shocked as I am, the Hobbit. I mean, it
makes sense. Right there on the tin.
Exactly. And then the third booklet came out actually 4 years later in 1999. They did one called The Map of Tolkien's Beleriand and the Lands to the North. And it covered all those First Age realms.
Right. And of course, what happened shortly after 1999?
Well, Prince's party ended.
That's true. That's true. Right on New Year's Eve. 2000.
Don't worry, I won't make you sing it, Shawn.
Thank you. Please.
Yeah.
I would not do that to Prince's music.
No.
In addition to that, a lot of people probably have not heard of this, but there was a little independent film project called The Lord of the Rings that came out in the 2001 to 2003 period.
Yeah.
Those movies made Tolkien exceedingly popular again. I mean, with normal people, not just people like us.
That's fair. Totally fair. Normal people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Present company excluded.
Right. And in 2003, those 3 map booklets were, as Sibley writes, gathered into an omnibus edition, additionally containing a new map of the doomed island of Numenor.
Spoilers, Brian.
I know, right? Yeah.
The doomed island of Numenor. You ruined the whole story, man.
Yeah. It only happens 3,000 years before Lord of the Rings, but fine.
All right.
And then gift editions of the first three, but not the Numenor map, were released in 2009 and 2010. And that's where we've stood with this for the last 14 years.
That's right. By the way, I want to use the word omnibus more often. That's another one of those great words.
Absolutely.
Gazetteer and omnibus. I got to try to figure out a way to get those into my vocabulary.
Maybe you should write an omnibus of gazetteers.
Ooh, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. I didn't even know about those gift editions until I was doing the research for this segment. I don't know if they're UK only, but they're pretty cool little hardbound, like, you know, they look like they're cloth bindings, small, but they're really, you know, pretty.
Yeah.
But of course, they didn't do one for the Numenor map. That was only in that omnibus edition. So this new 2024 edition combines all 4 maps. But instead of being attached and, you know, fold out, but still stuck in the actual book, these are all individual detached folded posters. The book also includes a number of textual revisions and then dozens of new pencil sketches from John Howe all throughout. Now, the maps are smaller in size than the ones in the original booklets. They're pretty much about half the size, but they're all in one place, and they're accompanied by those truly gorgeous pencil drawings. And of course, I think the clincher for me was that they're all now in a single hardcover volume instead of the impossible to keep crisp cardboard sleeves of the originals.
Yeah, I have the originals, and those are...
They're just banged up. Yeah.
It just happens. It's just happens just from owning them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have the originals or that 2003 boxed set, well, then this is a definite must-own.
Yeah, 100%.
As always, Brian Sibley provides reliable information on the places, and John Howe's maps are as gorgeous as you'd imagine they are. And there's stunning art surrounding each map on the borders. They're gorgeous, yeah. Now, if you do have those older versions, then this is a tougher call. The only truly new material is the new preface from Brian Sibley, along with somewhere around 30 pencil sketches from John Howe.
Maybe a little more. Hard to tell. I'd have to count every one, but there were a lot, but they're pencil sketches. They're not quite fully developed works.
Yeah. But the book does fit nicely on the shelves with the rest of the current editions. It's sized consistently, and it is in a format that's going to wear better than those earlier editions. It's definitely going to look nicer in 20 years.
That is true. 100%. Even better than the omnibus edition, because that comes in a box, and the box gets pretty dinged up pretty easily. And then the volumes are actually inside. One is the book, basically the gazetteer. And then the other is another smaller box with the maps.
Right. Okay.
But that's also really hard to find because it came out in 2003 and it hasn't been in print for a very long time. Yeah.
Right.
For more on all of that, I don't know how much of that we actually talked about in these various episodes, but you might want to go back to episode 229, where Shawn and I visited with John Howe.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 136, all the way back with Brian Sibley at Tolkien 2019. And just 293 last season when Nubeta and I interviewed Brian. And then also John was on Rings of Power Wrap-Up episode 23. So again, not talking about these maps at that point, but if you want to hear more from Brian or John, those are the places to go.
Excellent.
Yeah. Now, I want to go ahead and take a look at another reissue. This time, it's the 4 box sets of the History of Middle-earth. Now, the original volumes were published over a 13-year span, from 1983's The Book of Lost Tales Part 1 all the way to 1996's The Peoples of Middle-earth. Now, this re-release that has been coming out, 3 boxes have already been released. The 4th one's coming out very shortly. This re-release does have some serious advantages going for it, and I want to talk about that. First off, I got to tell you, trying to obtain a matching set of hardcover volumes is either very, very difficult or very expensive. Take your pick, and sometimes it's both.
Yeah.
There was a print-on-demand set available for a while, but first, it's no longer available, so that's not an option. And B, from what I could find, it was only available on HarperCollins' site, and they wouldn't ship to the U.S., so I couldn't get that on a first-hand market.
That's interesting. I had a few of those, and I don't recall if I ordered them direct from HarperCollins or if I got them from a retailer.
That must be the thing. I must have just been trying to go directly through them. Maybe I just gone to Blackwell's or something.
I think I got them from Blackwell's or one of the other retailers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't try super hard,
Right. Well, sure. You've got multiple editions of these already.
Actually, I only have one. I mean, I now have 2. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Now, there were some 3-volume editions as well. There were the gorgeous India paper editions of 2000 to 2001, but those were limited to 1,000 copies each and are really expensive on the secondary market. And that's when you can even find them, and they're not easy to find. Then there was a 2002 box set with 3 volumes, and then there was a similar 2017 deluxe box set, also with 3 volumes.
Yeah. Now, the India paper ones weren't super unwieldy. I mean, they're India paper, so they're actually quite thin, just like the 1969 Lord of the Rings on India paper. It's manageable. You're always a little afraid to handle it, but
I'm terrified of India paper, yeah.
But it is pretty amazing. But the regular 3-volume sets, the one that came out in 2002 and then the similar 2017, those sets, they're really hard to read. And that's what I have the 2002 box set.
Same.
The volumes are super, super thick. They're really unwieldy. And even though they're not India paper, the paper is still super thin. And you get a lot of that bleed through where the text from the backing page comes through and impacts readability. The problem was, though, if you wanted hardback, those were your options. Either print on demand and hope you could find a matching set. Early and often mismatched editions, maybe you'd get some that were UK HarperCollins and then some that were US Houghton Mifflin and the covers didn't match, or you ended up with a 3-volume box set. Those were your choices.
Yeah, and I've got that 2002 box set also, which I literally got just for the pagination because some of my reading copies are the old Del Rey paperbacks that have totally different pagination. And so for reference, I needed the ones with the consistent page numbers.
Yeah.
So I got them just for that. But yeah, they're not the easiest things to work with.
No, they're really hard to use. I mean, when I have to reference stuff in, let's say, Peoples of Middle-earth, or it's the end of the volume, and I've got 40 pages to my right and 1,200 pages to my left, it's impossible to keep the volume open without breaking the back.
Yeah, that's right. But that was it. That was all we had until now. HarperCollins published this new series to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the birth of Christopher Tolkien, who, of course, is the editor of these incredible works. And there are a number of things that make this set seriously worth considering. First is that it also includes 3 new volumes. Now, okay, don't get too excited. These are not new volumes of the history of Middle-earth, but they are volumes that frankly belong with the history of Middle-earth.
Yeah.
The Silmarillion and the Unfinished Tales from 1977 and 1980, respectively, were, of course, also edited by Christopher Tolkien after his father's death and really do belong with the history of Middle-earth.
They do. And what's more about those 2 volumes, the publisher explains that in this new box set, those 2 books are offset from early editions so that the page numbers correspond to all Christopher's page references in the history volumes, his great tales, and in other books like The Fall of Numenor. And that's really important if you do any research. They had a lot of people asking for that because the references in those other sources don't work with the other modern editions of the Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales. So that's a big plus. But, we said there are 3 new volumes, so what's the third one? At the end of the series, they are including a hardcover index to the entire history of Middle-earth. Now, that has only been available in hardcover via the now defunct print-on-demand setup. So, for example, I've been working with a mismatched paperback version of the index to use with my 3-volume box hardcover box set. So
that's exactly what I've got. Yep.
Exactly. And having an individual hardcover index is going to be super useful and really helpful when you're trying to do any sort of in-depth study at all of Middle-earth.
Definitely. And of course, let's not forget the artwork on these books because that is truly amazing and very unique.
Yeah.
Listen to this, folks. Each one of these books has double-sided dust jackets. So one side of the dust jacket reproduces the covers of the original hardcover editions, while the other side provides the covers that were originally on the paperback releases illustrated by John Howe.
That's right. And they are stunning pieces too, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And it is just a really unique, cool thing to have in your collection.
It is. Part of me wonders if there's anybody out there who bought 2 sets of this just so they could have one with the Howe covers facing out and one of the originals. That's not me. I'm crazy, but I'm not doing that. Yeah.
Now, as Alan mentioned earlier, the series is being released over time. Set 1 was released in December 2023, and that includes the Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, and the Book of Lost Tales Parts 1 and 2. The second box came out in late March of this year, and that includes the Lays of Beleriand, the Shaping of Middle-earth, and the Lost Road and Other Writings.
That's right. And then the third box actually released earlier this month. That includes the books focused on the Lord of the Rings. So The Return of the Shadow, The Treason of Isengard, The War of the Ring, and Sauron Defeated. The fourth and final box comes out in August in the UK and September in the US. And that's going to include Morgoth's Ring, The War of the Jewels, The Peoples of Middle-earth, and the index that will cover all 12 volumes of the history of Middle-earth. Now, I've already got the first 2 box sets. The third one is on its way, and the fourth one is on pre-order. And for me, it really was a no-brainer. The 3-volume edition is completely unwieldy. This is a reasonably priced way. Now, it's not cheap, but it does work out to be about $32, $33 per volume. And that's a reasonable price. I would pay $32 for a book on the shelf, you know? It's a great way to get quality print, readable text in a actually easy to handle volume, individual hardcovers, and then the plus, of course, is the lovely dust jackets and the boxes themselves. Yeah,
that's right. Now, of course, if you've already got a nice matching set of the paperbacks with the John Howe art, well, then it's a much harder sell.
That's true.
Yeah, in that case, there's really no need for these unless you're a fan of hardcover editions.
Yeah.
But if you don't already have the individual volumes in some format, this is a fantastic way to build your collection.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, the way that they've broken down the boxes means that if you only really want the volumes of History of Middle-earth that focus on the Lord of the Rings, then you can just get box set number 3 and be done with it.
That's true.
It's very logical the way they've done that.
You know, I do like a good hardcover. I like the way it feels in my hand. And the fact that they've gone to the single volumes instead of the 3-volume edition where you're trying to squeeze 3 or 4 books in one, it makes it so much more manageable. You can pick up the book and you're not intimidated by reading this 1,500-page tome.
Right.
You know, and of course the paper is a lot better than those 3-volume editions where it's basically translucent. Yeah. Print quality is really nice. I have to say, I was a little hesitant about the dual-sided covers. I thought to myself, there's going to be something wrong with the alignments, right? I'm going to turn it around and it's not going to line up properly where the folds would be, but they really did a good job with them. And I've played around with a little bit of both. And obviously they come with the John Howe art out. So you have to sort of refold it to get the original ones.
To get the original plain covers. Yeah.
You know, it works and it works well, surprisingly. And it is kind of cool to see, hey, this is what it looked like when it came out. This, including, by the way, on some of the volumes, actually I think on all of the volumes, the dust jacket text, the blurb on the inside, is the original dust jacket blurb. Whereas on the John Howe art,
that's cool.
It talks about the reissue.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff.
I've already got that box set, but I've been on the fence about these. I probably will just go ahead and pick them up because they seem really cool.
I think they're a great addition to my library. I'm looking forward to actually reading them now, you know, to reading the history of Middle-earth as opposed to just using it as a reference
piece of material. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, speaking of reading, would you start us out, Shawn? I can't believe I'm saying this, with the last chapter of The Lord of the Rings.
I will, my friend. The clearing up certainly needed a lot of work, but it took less time than Sam had feared. The day after the battle, Frodo rode to Mitchell Delving and released the prisoners from the Lockholes. One of the first that they found was poor Fredegar Bolger, fatty no longer. He had been taken when the ruffians smoked out a band of rebels that he led from their hidings up in the Brockenbors by the hills of Skerry. "You would have done better to come with us after all, poor old Fredegar," said Pippin, as they carried him out, too weak to walk. He opened an eye and tried gallantly to smile. "Who's this young giant with the loud voice?" he whispered. "Not little Pippin. What's your size in hats now?" Then there was Lobelia. Poor thing, she looked very old and thin when they rescued her from a dark and narrow cell. She insisted on hobbling out on her own feet, and she had such a welcome, and there was such clapping and cheering when she appeared, leaning on Frodo's arm but still clutching her umbrella, that she was quite touched and drove away in tears. She had never in her life been popular before. But she was crushed by the news of Lotho's murder, and she would not return to Bag End. She gave it back to Frodo, and went to her own people, the Bracegirdles of Hardbottle. When the poor creature died next spring, she was after all more than 100 years old, Frodo was surprised and much moved. She had left all that remained of her money and of Lotho's for him to use in helping hobbits made homeless by the Troubles. So that feud was ended. Old Will Whitfoot had been in the Lockholes longer than any, and though he had perhaps been treated less harshly than some, he needed a lot of feeding up before he could look the part of mayor. So Frodo agreed to act as his deputy until Mr. Whitfoot was in shape again.
Thank you, Shawn. That was great reading. It's
so lovely. so much lovely stuff in this chapter, and it starts right here.
It's so heartwarming, especially Lobelia. We'll get to that, but my goodness, it's all good.
Yeah, that's really sweet.
So at the end of the previous chapter, right, Sam said that he couldn't call it the end, talking about the war. It's not the end of the war until they've cleaned up the mess. And so that's where we're starting in this chapter. And fortunately, turns out it doesn't take anywhere near as long as Sam had feared.
And the very next day, which is November 4th, our Hobbit heroes ride to Mitchell Delving. Or at least Frodo and Pippin do, based on the dialogue that we get in the text. So they go to Mitchell Delving to set the prisoners free.
Yep.
Now, why didn't they go immediately after the death of Saruman, you may be wondering?
Yeah, I'm sure Fatty's wondering that.
Right? You guys didn't come here immediately. Guys,
I just spent another night in the Lockholes? Come on.
Right. But it was a simple matter of distance.
Yeah.
Remember, even if we go off the shorter distances described in this chapter, which says a good 40 miles from Brandywine Bridge to Bag End, well, it's at least that far again to Mitchell Delving.
Yeah, possibly farther. I mean, look at the map, a part of the Shire, right? The Three Farthing Stone is very near the center. Bag End is a bit to the northwest of the Three Farthing Stone. Brandywine Bridge is all the way near the far right-hand side of the map. You know that it's 40 miles from Brandywine Bridge to Bag End. But Mitchell Delving is actually off the map to the west. You don't even know where it is. It's just a little arrow that says to Mitchell Delving. So it's at least 40 miles away, far too distant for the hobbits to try to travel that night.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, they didn't even get to Bag End in one day from Brandywine.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, this would have been a long way. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, speaking of Mitchell Delving, we've never officially done any word nerdery on it, Alan.
No.
And I think now's as good a time as any, isn't it?
I think you're right. I mean, we know that it's basically the capital city of the Shire. It's located not in the middle, interestingly enough, near the Hobbiton Bywater complex, or Metropolis, as the case
Metropolis, may be. The Metroplex.
Yeah, that's right. It's a megalopolis.
This ain't exactly Dallas-Fort Worth, but okay.
No, it is not. This is not like the New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, stretch.
Right.
Interestingly, it isn't in the middle of the Shire. It's actually pretty far to the west, all the way over in the White Downs. The mayor is based there. The Shire Museum, the Matham House, is there, as well as the Town Hall, which I love that. It sounds like a wonderful play on Town Hall, if you ask me.
That's great. Yeah, that's absolutely intentional. It has to be.
Meet me at the Town Hall.
The Town Hall. It's
great. It's great.
All right, so let's talk word nerdery. The name Mitchell Delving basically means large digging or great excavation or whatever other set of synonyms you want to use there. Basically, delving is a noun that comes from the verb it sounds like, to delve.
Yep.
And that's actually a modern English word deriving from Middle English delven, which actually ultimately comes from Old English delvan, meaning to dig, turn up with a spade or other tool, or excavate.
Yep.
Now, Mitchell, the first word there, is taken from Old English Mitchell with just a C. But in Old English, that C, particularly before certain vowels like an I or an E, is typically pronounced the way we pronounce CH. So it might look like Mikkel or Missel in Old English, but it's pronounced Mitchell. And then Tolkien has updated the modern spelling to make it look the way it's going to sound.
In an interesting way, though, it might have been easier if you'd spell it TCH so that we would all know. Because I don't know about you, but for the first 20 years of reading this, I always thought it was Mickle Delving.
I did, or for a while I was like, is it Michael Delving? Or, I think I took French in high school. So is it Michel? Yeah, I didn't know.
No, I had no idea. But yeah, once you know it's from Old English, then it becomes obvious it's Mitchell Delving. That same Mitchell element from Old English is in another English Westron name. This is one that you might not remember. This is from the Silmarillion, and it's one of the names for Belagost, or as we used to insist on calling it, Belagost, which of course means Great Fortress in Sindarin. The Old English name for it is Mickelburg, which means exactly the same thing, Great Forest, but it's that same Mitchell element, but in more modern English is Mickelburg. Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
So, but now that we are at Mitchell Delving, or Michel Delving, whatever you want to call it, it is time to free those prisoners.
I love that you just Frenchified the whole name, Michel Delving.
Well, if you're going to Frenchify the one, you got to Frenchify the other.
You got to do the rest, yeah.
So first up is Fredegar Bolger, who has gone on the prison weight loss scheme, and now,
oh man,
I'm picturing him as a buffed up Uncle Iroh from Avatar: The Last Airbender, doing like those one-arm pull-ups and just. Oh,
I only know that reference from you, but I do get it now.
I'll send you a little clip from it. Yeah.
You told me about it, and I think one of our other listeners mentioned it to me. But yeah, that's great.
Fun times.
So yes, Fredegar's there. He's been losing some weight, and we learned that he was captured and put in the Lockholes for leading a band of rebels up in the Brockenbors near Scary.
So cool.
First of all, yeah, I mean, Fredegar Bolger leading a troop of partisans is just so cool. I mean, remember back in book 1, this was the guy who was terrified of the old forest. This is the guy who never went on the quest.
Yeah.
Now he's a leader of the Rebel Alliance, man.
I love it. General Bolger.
Yeah.
He's just on it, man.
It's awesome.
Speaking of the Brockenbors near Scary, let's talk about that a little bit. Brockenbors is an interesting place name. If you look on the map, you actually won't find Brockenbors. Instead, you'll find Brockenborings. Now, obviously, it's the same thing. And either way, the name certainly implies holes in the ground dug by the badger. We've talked about this before when mentioning the Brock houses at Bilbo's party, that the Old English word for badger was brock. So Brockenborings or Brockenbors.
And now all I can think of is badger, 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 badger.
Yes.
It's not quite as catchy when it's brock, 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 brock.
No, you're right. It doesn't sound quite the same.
No,
I don't know.
it
Something
doesn't.
about that single syllable does change the whole flavor of it.
Anyway, Hammond and Skull point to Tolkien's unfinished index, where we learn that Brockenbors is defined as holes in the quarried hills of Scary.
But then that just asks another question. It takes us to Scary, which seems at first glance to be a pretty odd name. Like, is it haunted or something?
Good guess, but no, not exactly. The nomenclature explains that it is a meaningless name in the Shire, but since it was in a region of caves and rock holes and of a stone quarry, it may be supposed to contain English dialectical scar, rocky cliff.
Oh, okay. I suppose. I had no idea that's what that meant, but okay.
I would not have known either if Tolkien had not told us that in the nomenclature.
That's such a useful resource.
Yeah, it really is. Now, to go further than that into word nerdery on Scary, we have to do a little speculation, and we have to rely on some better linguists than us to do that.
Well, that's not hard to do.
It's not. It's a low bar. It is
just
a low bar.
Like close your eyes and throw a dart. You're pretty much likely to
we'll
hit
find somebody who
who's a
knows
better
more about this
linguist.
stuff than we do. Well, we found two of the best here.
Yeah, that's true.
So in a 1998 analysis by David Sallow, that's the linguist who worked on Peter Jackson's movies, if you recall, Sallow speculated that it might be from Norse, skedig. Sallow calls the Norse origin evident from the preservation of SK. Now, what he means by that is Old English words that begin with an SK sound, which is usually spelled SC in Old English, usually in the transition from Old English to Middle and then Modern English, that initial SK sound usually turns into an SH sound in later English. And so what Sallow is saying here is that since this is an SK sound in the Modern English or the Modern Westron, that usually indicates that a word comes from Norse.
Okay.
But Tom Shippey disagrees with this. Tom Shippey holds on to the possibility of there being an actual Old English derivation. Tom Shippey thinks it may be from Old English sheru, which means boundary. And he points out that in Northern England, sometimes that SK sound sticks around.
Yeah.
Even though the SK sound changes to SH in other parts of England, sometimes in Northern English, it stays in SK when you get to later English. And Shippey thinks that maybe Tolkien was trying to make it sound like a Northern place name by keeping that SK sound.
Well, plus it's up near the border anyway. It's at the very north end of the North Farthing, so that could work.
So it should sound Northern. Yeah, that could be what Tolkien's doing here.
But also fits the boundary idea.
That's true. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Being a boundary. Absolutely right. So, yeah, speculation. Take your pick.
Perfectly fine. Take your pick. Sallow or Shippey, I'm good either way.
Yeah. I mean, these guys know their linguistics, and one of them is right. These are both good answers.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So back to the text. Pippin gives Fredegar a little grief. He says, you should have come with us and you wouldn't have had to be stuck in the Lockholes.
That's true. On the other hand, you also would have had to be dragged halfway across Rohan by a bunch of orcs or gone with Frodo and Sam into the very hell of Mordor itself.
Yeah, you know. But you might have grown some.
It might have, yeah. 10 or 11 months in the Lockholes actually sounds pretty easy in comparison, really.
In comparison to some of the stuff, especially Mordor.
Yeah.
And then we get Fredegar's question about Pippin's hat size.
Oh, yeah. So
kind of an odd thing to fixate on as...
Yeah. I mean, normally if somebody's grown, you're going to comment on their height, but maybe Pippin's been, I don't know. I think Fatty is suspecting him of steroid usage. You know, we talk about the helmet sizes of certain baseball players who shall not be named.
Yeah, I think Pippin was trying out for the Gondor minor leagues or the majors.
Yeah, the San Francisco Giants, yeah.
Hey. Oh, I get it. Giants.
Yes, exactly right.
That's all you meant by that.
That is all I meant. I wasn't naming any player.
Right.
All right. Well, Pippin's questionable performance-enhancing drugs taking, we'll just set that aside. I mean, really, because I think Ent Draft is going to pass all the tests, right? I mean, this is an IOC-approved substance. It's perfectly natural, homeopathic.
Hey, that's right. Yeah. You know what? Eru put this here for you and me.
That's right. Wow. Quick aside, by the way, with the text saying that Frodo rode to Mitchell Delving, it doesn't say anything about the other hobbits. But clearly there's dialogue with Pippin here, but not with Merry. That suggests to me that really only Frodo and Pippin went to Mitchell Delving here, and Sam and Merry remained behind in the Hobbiton Bywater megalopolis.
That's kind of what I get from this. We don't have any reason to believe that Sam and Merry are there, and it does make sense that somebody would stay behind.
Because I think Fatty would have said something if Merry was there. Wow, Pippin and Merry, good to see you guys or something. But he only speaks about Pippin's hat size.
And it makes sense that Sam and Merry would stay behind, or at least that a couple of them would stay behind.
I agree. I mean, Sam's eager to get the work done.
Right.
He's starting to try to organize things, as we'll see. Yeah.
But then we get Her Majesty. The Queen herself, Lobelia the Brave.
Oh, I love her.
This is such a wonderful moment. You talk about a character who you start out hating and you end up loving her, and you don't even get to see her transformation in the text.
No, you really don't.
You see the before and the after,
and
the after is so lovely.
Oh, it's spectacular. Really is.
She is barely able to walk out on her own, but she insists that she does exactly that.
That is Lobelia to a T, isn't it?
It is, the strength and the pride. But this is not a pernicious pride.
No.
This is a positive pride, I feel. I feel
so too.
Chin up. This is, I'm not defeated by this.
It's, in a way, it's kind of the same type of pride that led her to be willing to confront the ruffians, and I'll give you Sharky, and
you're right.
It's that same it's that refusal to surrender, never give up, never surrender.
Right. Yeah.
So and that is Lobelia for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you can see why the welcome she receives when she comes out is just overwhelming.
I love that, and I love it because it happened before we see what she did. Right. We'll get to kind of her epilogue here in a second and see that she is a changed person, and it's fantastic. But she gets that reception from these people, from the rest of the Shire that are there at the Lockholes and Mitchell Delving, even though she is who she is, right?
Just for having stood up to them, basically.
Just for standing up to the ruffians.
They don't know the depth of the change. They just know that she stood up to them, and they love her for that. And that's wonderful. It's really lovely.
So even though she's holding Frodo's arm, she still carries her umbrella, or her umbrella, as we discovered last episode. That was fantastic.
She probably has a little file hidden down in there. Maybe she was,
Oh, yeah. Cutting away. Yeah. She was like 3 or 4 days away from actually digging out of the Lockholes. Yeah.
Yeah.
A little Shawshank Redemption right there in the Lockholes. I love it.
Who would be on the poster, though? That's what I want to know.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Probably Lotho.
Probably. And then we get, like I said, her sort of her epilogue, right? I mean, we sort of get a flash forward into the things that happened to her after this moment. First, though, we get the description that she was never popular before. And, well, let's be honest, probably for good reason. She was not the kindest person.
She wasn't a nice person. She was a nasty, difficult person to be around.
Yeah. And a petty thief at that,
And a petty thief. Let's not forget that.
Let's not forget a spoon stealing, umbrella carrying, because it's an easy way to steal people's stuff.
Right.
Yeah, she was greedy. She was just...
If she was a thief but nice, or if she was really mean, but at least not a felon.
Cantankerous, but not stealing your stuff. We could go. We could accept either one.
We could accept one of the two, but both? No, that's not happening.
That is beyond the pale, man.
Right.
On the other hand, now, like you said, it's because she stood up to the ruffians, right? These people have been living under the thumb of these ruffians for a long time now. And she is a folk hero for having stood up to them. And it's just fantastic.
Yeah, yes.
But this flash forward, right? She learns about the murder of Lotho. And this is just too much for her. She lost her husband Otho a number of years ago, actually before she got into Bag End, but it's all too much for her. And so I love this. Instead of going home to Bag End, which she just bought last year.
After coveting it for decades, by the way.
Yeah, she wanted it forever. She buys it, and a year later, she hands it back to Frodo. She doesn't try to sell it back to him. She doesn't try to make any money off the deal. She just says, it's yours. And she goes home to her family.
Yeah. And that family is the Brace Girdles of Hardbottle.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we need to do a little more word nerdery.
I think we do. Yeah.
As well as a little cartography on Hardbottle here.
Okay. You take the one, I'll take the other.
All right. So with the word nerdery, I'm going to start in the nomenclature. That's where Tolkien tells us that bottle in this name is an English place name element. Old English bottle, variant of bold, from which modern English build is derived, meaning large dwelling. Tolkien says it is not connected with bottle, glass container.
Oh, that is interesting.
Not totally different word.
Totally different word. Okay.
And then Tolkien adds that translators should use suitable elements in their language to mean hard dwelling. And then he specifies that it's hard because excavated in or built of stone.
Okay. Well, now that we understand the name, where is it? Now, the Atlas of Middle-earth places it to the southwest, down in the South Farthing, to the west of Sackville, and right near the border of the West Farthing. And Karen Wynne Fonstad explains why. She says the name means hard dwelling, so she did her homework on the nomenclature. So the town was probably in some rocky area, such as the Downs. But was it north or south, White or Far Downs? The Brace Girdles owned many tobacco plantations, and the Sackville-Bagginses had land in South Farthing, so Hardbottle was placed on the White Downs at their south end. Okay. Sounds
Can't argue
to
with
me.
that logic. That's a reasonable conclusion. And it's quite possible that she based that on Tolkien's Unfinished Index, where Tolkien does in fact place it in the South Farthing. But she must have missed the nomenclature's entry on it, because right after the bit that we quoted a moment ago, Tolkien actually tells us that Hardbottle is in the rocky North Farthing.
Well, there you have it. It's interesting, though, that in the Unfinished Index, he'd originally placed it in the South Farthing. So that means she didn't rely on the nomenclature to come up with the name Hard Dwelling. She must have figured that out through some other means.
She must have known that some other way, yeah.
Because she knew it wasn't related to bottle, glass, container, like I must have thought for so many long time.
Well, that's what you think. I mean,
I know.
You see bottle, it just looks
Scary's
like
haunted, hard bottles where they store all the glass for recycling. I don't know.
Yeah. That's where they keep all the hard liquor in glass bottles.
There you go. There you go. So I mentioned, by the way, on a recent episode of today's Tolkien Times, so June 25th's Tolkien Tuesday, that the nomenclature was originally published as Guide to the Names in the Lord of the Rings, and it was included in a collection of essays that was called A Tolkien Compass, published in 1975. Now, by the time they released the second edition in 2003, that omitted the nomenclature at the request of the Tolkien estate, presumably because they had then worked with Hammond and Skull to get it into
Hammond and Skull to put it in
Reader's Companion.
Lord of the Rings Reader's Companion. Yeah. The edition that I have of Tolkien Compass is the 2003, so it doesn't have the nomenclature in it.
Right.
Now, interestingly, in Barbara Strachey's Journeys of Frodo map collection, which was published in 1981, so it's actually the same year as Fonstad's Atlas, but Fonstad's Atlas is a bit more thorough.
Right.
Strachey actually placed it in the North Farthing, but doesn't say anything about its placement in the text.
Right. So it could have been a coin flip. It just could have been a lucky draw, whatever it was, but that's where she put it. Yeah.
Now back to the text and back to Lobelia's lovely epilogue. We're told that she did pass away in the spring of the following year, and that would be 1420. And I sure hope she got to see some of it, because as we know, it's going to be a great year. We're going to see that very soon here.
That would be so heartwarming to know that she was aware of all the joy that was coming, in the Shire, and sort of knowing that it was on its way to being healed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So after her death, Frodo was rightly surprised to learn that she chose to leave the remainder of her fortune and her son's very sizable fortune to Frodo. Now, not for Frodo's own personal use, not for his wealth, not because he didn't need it,
right?
But for him to use to help all the hobbits that were hurt by her son's actions. And I got to tell you, that is such a beautiful redemption arc.
It really is.
It's just glorious.
It is. And it's amazing because, again, we don't see the transformation in her. We just see the before and the after. So
I know.
It kind of makes it more of a stark contrast. It
really does.
You see how she is now, and it really is shocking and really wonderful.
I want to know, like you said, we don't see the transformation. I would love to see her coming to grips with what happened while she was in the Lockholes and coming to the realization that the right thing for her to do would be to leave that wealth to essentially to the Shire in order to repair that damage and make it right.
Yeah.
That's not the Lobelia that we would have known, even a couple of years before.
And think of the heartbreak she must feel to know that her son was responsible for so much of it. We talked about Lotho's responsibility.
Yeah, how culpable was he for those actions, especially the ones that were beyond, what he'd intended.
Yes, and there were things that happened that Lotho, I don't think, has culpability for.
No.
Even though he has culpability for starting the whole thing. But
he sure does.
But just to know that he did as much as he did and kind of enabled these other things to happen, it's got to be heartbreaking for her.
Yeah.
And it is sad that she dies knowing her son is gone. There's nobody else to continue the family name.
No.
That is very sad, but it's lovely that she had that redemption before the end.
It really is. I would love to see a little, Tolkien written epilogue on Lobelia's last year.
Yeah.
Sitting around with her family and some of her family maybe talking a little bit about maybe where she went wrong.
Yeah.
And her realizing all the things that happened and the remorse, and then maybe reaching out to some of the harder hit families. And how do you think the families of people who were impacted are going to take hearing that news? I mean, they're hobbits, so I think they're going to take it better than humans would.
I think they would forgive her for the person she used to be, recognize the change that she's made in her life, and I think they'd be appreciative.
I think so too.
I do. I think that in a way, hobbits represent, they're not like elves in the way that Tolkien said elves represent sort of the best of humanity. Hobbits don't. We know that hobbits have their shortcomings, but they do represent a kind of simplicity and community,
purity
that I think,
and
I think more so than humans. And so I think that they would recognize the change, and I think they would appreciate it, and I think they would welcome her.
I think so too.
I hope so.
I do too. Man, that's fantastic. Love her story.
Yeah, me too. But we got one more prisoner to talk about, and that is old Will Whitfoot, old flour dumpling himself. This is the mayor who had gone to talk things over with Lotho, poor guy, and ended up becoming the first of the prisoners thrown in the Lockholes.
That's right.
Remember last chapter, Robin Smallborough said, they took old flour dumpling, old Will Whitfoot the mayor first.
And then it was Farmer Cotton, or Farmer Exposition, as we've called him, that gave us more on the timeline. He says, old Will the mayor set off for Bag End to protest, but he never got there. Ruffians laid hands on him and took him and locked him up in a hole in Mitchell Delving. And there he is now. And after that, it would be soon after New Year. And it's November 4th when he's freed. So if he was imprisoned right before or maybe right at the New Year, we're talking about nigh on a year since he's been in the Lockholes.
That's right. But apparently he has been treated a bit better than others. He is a head of state after all.
I suppose, yeah.
But he still had some recuperating to do, and for that he needed a deputy for a little bit, and Frodo steps up to do that.
And we'll see exactly what Frodo does right after the break. Now, we'll get back to Frodo's short political career in just a minute, but first we want to remind you that there's a lot more talk going on at the Prancing Pony Podcast than just us.
That's right. The PPP has an amazing listener community. They're always coming up with great questions and discussions across all of our social media spaces. Check out our common room on Facebook, our dedicated subreddit, Twitter, and more.
Now, on Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony Podcast. Follow the page to get the news, but you're going to want to join the group to get involved in some great discussions.
Or if you prefer Reddit, you can find us there at r/PrancingPonyPod. And on Twitter and Instagram, we're simply at PrancingPonyPod.
Hey, and please be sure to get your daily Tolkien content by subscribing to Today's Tolkien Times on YouTube and on all your favorite podcast apps. It's a short format daily show that I've been doing for a little while now, a little over a year, with everything from Mailbag Mondays to Silmarillion Saturdays. Be sure to check it out at youtube.com/@TolkienTimes and follow @TolkienTimes on all your social media.
Please do. It's absolutely worth it. It's a great show. But now, Alan, let's jump back into the text, and you're going to read the next section for us.
I will indeed. Meanwhile, the labor of repair went on apace, and Sam was kept very busy. Hobbits can work like bees when the mood and the need comes on them. Now there were thousands of willing hands of all ages, from the small but nimble ones of the hobbit lads and lasses, to the well-worn and horny ones of the gaffers and gammers. Before Yule, not a brick was left standing of the new sheriff houses or of anything that had been built by Sharkey's men. But the bricks were used to repair many an old hole to make it snugger and drier. Great stores of goods and food and beer were found that had been hidden away by the ruffians in sheds and barns and deserted holes, and especially in the tunnels at Mitchell Delving and in the old quarries at Skerry, so that there was a great deal better cheer that Yule than anyone had hoped for. One of the first things done in Hobbiton, before even the removal of the new mill, was the clearing of the hill and Bag End and the restoration of Bagshot Row. The front of the new sand pit was all leveled and made into a large, sheltered garden, and new holes were dug in the southward face, back into the hill, and they were lined with brick. The gaffer was restored to number 3, and he said often, and did not care who heard it, "It's an ill wind as blows nobody no good, as I always say, and all's well as ends better." There was some discussion of the name that the new row should be given. Battle Gardens was thought of, or Better Smiles. But after a while, in sensible Hobbit fashion, it was just called New Row. It was a purely bywater joke to refer to it as Sharkey's End.
And we're going to talk about that joke in a few minutes. But first...
We will. Yes, we will.
Yes, but first let's go back to the part of the text that we skipped and move on to the work that was done by the hobbits. First up, Frodo's brief role as deputy mayor and his single task as mayor, which was restoring the sheriffs to their original numbers. Now, remember, the original number of sheriffs was 12. There were 3 for each farthing. So
that's right.
A lot of guys got laid off.
Seriously, a whole lot of pink slips, man.
Yeah.
I don't know what their pay is, if they have a severance package or anything. Maybe it's a feather.
Here's a special feather.
Yeah.
You keep your feather.
But not only was he restoring their original number, he was also restoring their original role. And if we go back to the prologue, that tells us what their role was. They were in practice rather haywards than policemen, more concerned with the strayings of beasts than of people.
And that makes sense. I mean, yeah, if you don't have ruffians in the Shire causing trouble, then people aren't going to be rising up, and you don't need the sheriffs to keep them down.
No.
It
don't have all those crazy rules to enforce anymore. You don't have...
Right.
Yeah. What do you need all of them for? Let them get back to their jobs, like, I don't know, innkeeping, that they can open up the inns again.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get the economy going again in the Shire. So that was Frodo's task. Then we get Merry and Pippin's task, and that is hunting down the last of the ruffians. Of course, these are the guys you want.
Those guys. Yeah.
You want these guys being the muscle here.
100%.
Not surprisingly, the text says that task was soon done. I bet it was.
You bet.
I mean, after all, the word of the Battle of Bywater had spread even among the ruffians.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sure nobody wanted a piece of Merry and Pippin after that. So most of them fled, and the ones that did remain were rounded up and deported. And again, it's November 3rd as we're reading this in terms of the date in the Shire. So before year's end means this was done in the span of less than 8 weeks. The entire Shire cleared of all the ruffians.
Yeah. I do want to back up on to one thing that's in the text here. It says those that surrendered were shown to the borders.
Yeah.
So obviously that's surrendered as opposed to fled.
Mm-hmm.
Do you take from that some of them also fought?
There might have been a handful who did.
There were a few that might have actually fought and were killed.
Those that surrendered, because otherwise you'd be talking about they were all shown to the borders.
Right.
Every last one of them shown to the borders. Now it suggests a few more had to die.
Yeah, it does seem that way. Just a reminder that, fighting probably wasn't completely over with the Battle of Bywater.
Not 100%. Oh, it's just like down in the South, right? I mean, we've talked about, after the war with Sauron, it's not as though the fighting is over. We know that when Faramir goes to Ithilien, he's going to have to tame that land. There's going to have to be a lot of fighting over there in order to make it a safe place to live again. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, then into the part that Alan actually did read. That's when we move to Sam's task. And Sam was kept comparatively busy, it seems. It's not explicitly said in the text, but it sure seems like he's the one organizing the rebuilding effort. He's really taking the share of that work. Yeah.
Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me. I mean, he's the one who was struck by this the hardest, I think, when we look back at his reaction. And he's also the one who probably has the skill set necessary, certainly more than Frodo, who, sort of a genteel landowner.
Yeah.
He's not.
Sam's working class. He's a laborer.
He knows how to get the job done.
How to get stuff done.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of work, we get a reminder here of the work ethic of hobbits. It's a stark contrast with the notion that we often have of them as these lazy, pipe-smoking, 6-meal-a-day eating layabouts. I mean, they can be hard work.
I mean, they are that, but they're also this.
Wouldn't you be if you could, right? I mean, that's the whole thing.
Totally.
Absolutely. Their work-life balance is definitely different than ours.
That's absolutely right. Yep.
But everybody's in on the action, right? Everybody from the little guys all the way up to the old ones, the gammers and gaffers.
Yeah. This is truly a community coming together to restore itself.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to do a little word nerdery here and remind folks that gammers is just the female version of gaffers.
Right.
This is a rustic word for an old woman. The Oxford English Dictionary actually suggests that gammer is a contraction of either grandmother or godmother. And the gaffer would be something similar, although the OED is a bit more conclusive that gaffer comes from godfather, not from grandfather.
Interesting, though, that it's possible for gammer to not come from godmother. You'd almost think that that's, interesting.
You'd think that those would be the same. It has to do with that A.
Yeah.
The OED doesn't think that the A in gaffer could have come from grandfather just because of the sound changes that usually happen, whereas the A in gammer could have.
Very interesting.
I trust the lexicographers on this. I can't explain it, but they said
I definitely do. I mean, I am not going to stand against the OED. That's just, that's an unwise thing to do.
Yep.
Now, we get a list of accomplishments that are done here in a very short time frame. Again, remember that the day after the battle here, it's what do we say, November 3rd? So before Yule, remember, the Shire calendar has 12 months of 30 days each, and then they have 3 days between June and July. They're not in a month. Those are 1 Lithe, Mid-Year's Day, and 2 Lithe. And then they have 2 Yule days, one of which falls as the last day of the year, and then one is the first day of the new year. So if today is November 3rd, we're talking about completing this work by December 30th. We're talking a little over 7 weeks. That's pretty intense. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't get that much work done between the beginning of November and
to get rid of all of the buildings that these guys built. Well, I guess that tells you about the quality of the buildings, maybe.
That's a very good point. Yeah. And as you said, in that time, every single one of the new sheriff houses was torn down and all of the other buildings that the ruffians built. And I love this. They used the bricks to repair older homes. I love this because this is, to me, I thought of Spibimi when I read this, because you're taking something evil, you're taking something bad, and you're turning it into something good. And I thought that was lovely. It's a very earthly, worldly kind of Spibimi, but I think it's kind of lovely.
But it works. It fits for the Shire perfectly. I mean, that's exactly how you'd expect to see Spibimi played out in this sort of rustic environment. Yeah. You're 100% right. I mean, those things didn't even belong there in the first place. I mean, the ruffians coming along and making all these brick buildings. That's not something that the Shire residents would have used very often. I mean, sure, maybe sometimes for an outbuilding of some kind.
Yeah.
But, now we're using those bricks to actually improve the lives of people in the Shire by making their homes cozier and warmer. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very much a Spibimi.
They were discordant, much like the Discord of Melkor. They did not fit. They were ugly. Not. They were loud. They were uncomfortable.
Braying on one note consistently like Morgoth or Melkor at the time. Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah.
Wow. Excellent observation. I love that.
Thanks. Yeah. I thought of that as I was reading this. I was like, that's just so cool. And you're exactly right. You wouldn't expect a grand theological playing out of Spibimi. You would expect this kind of simple earthly playing out.
Yeah. Very down to earth, very tangible. It fits the character of these people and of this place. Yeah.
It does. Totally. So what else happened? They found a lot of food and beer and maybe some pipe weed. It doesn't say, but probably some laying around somewhere.
I'm sure.
They'd found a lot of food and beer, though, around the Shire, especially in the Mitchell Delving tunnels.
Yeah.
And as it does, this made Yuletide much happier all around. I know that's what I look forward to at Yuletide is the food and the beer.
There you go.
And the family, of course.
Of course, yeah. Good save, Shawn. Good save.
Thanks. But of course, it's eating and drinking with family anyway.
Right. They come along. They're part of the package deal.
Exactly.
I thought it was interesting because, we talked about this in the last chapter, the ruffians sort of using this ethic of why they're taking over the Shire. This place needs setting to rights and you're going to work harder and blah, blah, all about efficiency and all of this. We talked about sharing, gathering and sharing. The ruffians obviously were not interested in sharing. They weren't even consuming this stuff themselves. They were simply gathering it. It was less about, hey, we need this, and more about, we don't want you to have it.
Yeah, that's true.
It really seems vindictive and petty at so many levels. Just
like the whole MO for this whole thing, right? We talked about the destruction of the trees and the despoiling of the landscape.
They're not using the material. They're just doing it to tear it down.
Yeah, I think that's a really good observation.
It just echoes that really and reminds us that the whole gathering and sharing thing was never actually in play.
It was just nonsense. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the Shire as a whole, but what about the area that we know well, right? What's happening in Bag End during this rebuilding in November and December? Well, first things first, clear the hill and Bag End of all the ruffians' work, so all those sheds that were outside Bag End, the quarry that had been dug, and restore the homes on Bagshot Row.
And then the sand pit that we saw last chapter, that open quarry, that's filled and that's turned into a garden.
Lovely.
With brand new homes dug into the south face, all lined with brick.
Again, a little bit of that spibimi that you were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah.
I mean, now we have a garden here, and these are new homes, and they're brick lined.
Yeah. And we're going to use the brick to line these homes. Yeah, make them more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And the Gaffer gets his home back at number 3 Bagshot Row. And he's thrilled enough with this to offer not one, but 2 Hobbit proverbs. Let's talk about
He might have gotten 3 if he'd gotten his taters back.
Yeah.
Because remember, those were
What about my taters, Frodo? Come on.
I got my house, but what about my taters, man?
Yeah.
You ought not to have sold Bag End. It's all your fault, Frodo.
All your fault that I don't have my taters, and I'm never getting them back.
Well, one of these proverbs, and we should talk about these, is of course not a Hobbit proverb. It's an ill wind as blows nobody no good, the Gaffer says. Now, this is a way of expressing that even misfortune typically benefits somebody. Like a huge hailstorm may destroy a bunch of roofs, but the roofing companies are going to get business. It's an ill wind as blows nobody no good. And it appears to have its roots in the days of sailing ships, where a wind would typically benefit one ship or the other in a battle. It was again, very, very rare, and it would be an ill wind indeed that it didn't blow somebody some good.
That didn't go somebody's way and didn't give somebody the advantage in that battle. That's interesting.
And so that's what the Gaffer is saying here is that, look, this might not have been a good thing. It's almost a Spibimi saying, right? He's saying at the end of the day, we've gotten some good out of this.
You can get some good out of just about anything. It's a really ill wind that you get no good out of, that nobody gets any good out of.
Yeah. Somebody's going to get something good out of this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that the hobbits would have a proverb that ultimately comes from the nautical world, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean,
I'm probably digging too deep. Maybe Tolkien wasn't thinking about that, but
when I did my digging, that's what I found. But as it is with these idioms, you could really find other places. I mean, it does go back to Shakespeare as well, of course. I mean, Shakespeare was the first to make it famous.
Right.
But it dated back a little bit further than that, it appears. That's why I keep trying to say that. It's a disclaimer. I may be wrong.
Right. We're just going by what we can find.
I just start my day with that disclaimer, by the way. Everything I say today may be wrong.
That actually wouldn't be a bad way to start your day.
No, it would not.
Probably endear you to your wife and your family.
And everybody I speak to. Yeah.
And everybody else who has to interact with you. All right, so that's the first proverb. And the other appears to be the Gaffer's own play on the proverb, all's well that ends well.
Right, exactly. All's well that ends well is a good phrase, but I do like the Gaffer's spin, all's well as ends better. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep, I like that a lot.
And we may, I don't know yet, I don't want to make promises, folks, but we may take a look at some of these proverbs in the P5. I'd like to take a look at all the Gaffer's proverbs. Might be a little fun project.
That would be a lot of fun. Now, then we get a fun look at the Hobbit discussion of what they're going to call this newly restored row of homes.
That's right.
So let's take a look at some of these options here.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've got Battle Gardens. Now, I'm not a fan of that name myself. I mean, the battle didn't take place at Bag End, all the way down by Bywater, so let's not call it Battle Gardens. Better Smiles? I don't know about you, but I'm getting Better Homes and Gardens vibe from Better Smiles.
Yeah.
Like, it's a magazine.
Right? Better Smiles.
I just don't know. Better Smiles.
Or a TV show. Maybe it's a show on HGTV.
Yeah, or a TV show. Yeah, on HGTV. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It does make me wonder, though, by calling them better, it makes me wonder if there's a Best Smiles someplace else. Like, wait a minute, Plus,
we wanted the best ones. We just got better ones. Like,
I don't understand.
Got to go to Tuckborough for the best smiles. Sorry.
That's right.
They've got great smiles.
Location. Plus, the old homes really weren't that bad, so I don't know about Better Smiles either.
Fair enough, yeah. Then we get New Row, and this really is, as the text says, sensible Hobbit fashion. Plain, it's simple, it's like the water, the hill, and so on. It's like,
kind of boring, but it works.
It's got all you need to know. It's the New Row. That's it. And then the local in-joke of referring to it as Sharky's End. This is just...
good stuff.
To me, this is almost like Farmer Giles of Ham level wordplay.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just a funny... The story by which this place got to be named this is exactly the kind of thing you find in Farmer Giles.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes sense. I mean, this is indeed the place where Sharky's life ended, where he met his end. But, of course, Sharky's End also echoes the name of Bag End.
Right. It's a cul-de-sac. It is a dead end.
Yeah.
And so it is an end, a place name.
That's right.
By the way, in the drafts, it also had an end. The Bywater joke then was Ruffian's End.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not quite as pointed as Sharky's End.
No, it almost sounds like the name of a pub on Alderaan or something like that. Ruffian's End. Yeah, it's a Star Wars feel to it.
Is it a hive of scum and villainy?
Yeah, exactly. Now, though it was mentioned at the beginning of the paragraph, we were going in chronological order, so we actually skipped the whole part about before even the removal of the new mill. But clearly that is done at some point before Yule. And I really want to see the look on Ted Sandyman's face when that happens.
Yeah. And as we talked about, was it last time or the time before, we talked about what does Ted Sandyman do after this?
Yeah.
Like what kind of job is he going to find? Because he's not a mill owner anymore, obviously.
No.
Miller, I guess is what you call it. He's not that anymore. He's just like he's a wage slave now.
Yeah.
Where's he going?
Where is he going? He has no family here that we're aware of. Certainly he's not married with kids or anything. He could pick up and move. I think he at least picks up and moves out of here. Maybe he doesn't end up. I think last week I speculated that maybe he moves to Bree and totally starts over because we know there are hobbits there. But I could see him at least moving out of the Hobbit and Bywater area and starting over someplace else in the Shire. But Bree's still certainly a possibility. Get someplace where there's a totally fresh start where you're not labeled as this guy who was a total collaborator.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe he hooks up with some of Bill Ferny's old family. He's probably in good with those people.
Yeah. Oh,
I know.
All right.
It's Ted. What are you going to do?
Well, like we said last time when we ran into Ted, there are no more mentions of Ted. So we don't ever have to hear from him again.
We don't talk about Ted anymore.
That's right. We don't have to hear from him anymore, but we do have to hear from you. Can you read the next passage, Shawn?
All right. The trees were the worst loss and damage, for at Sharky's bidding they had been cut down recklessly far and wide over the Shire. And Sam grieved over this more than anything else. For one thing, this hurt would take long to heal, and only his great-grandchildren, he thought, would see the Shire as it ought to be. Then suddenly, one day, for he had been too busy for weeks to give a thought to his adventures, he remembered the gift of Galadriel. He brought the box out and showed it to the other travelers, for so they were now called by everyone, and asked their advice. "I wondered when you would think of it," said Frodo. "Open it." Inside it was filled with a grey dust, soft and fine, in the middle of which was a seed, like a small nut with a silver shale. "What can I do with this?" said Sam. "Throw it in the air on a breezy day and let it do its work," said Pippin. "On what?" said Sam. "Choose one spot as a nursery and see what happens to the plants there," said Mary. "But I'm sure the lady would not like me to keep it all for my own garden, now so many folk have suffered," said Sam. "Use all the wits and knowledge you have of your own, Sam," said Frodo, "and then use the gift to help your work and better it. And use it sparingly. There is not much here, and I expect every grain has a value." So Sam planted saplings in all the places where specially beautiful or beloved trees had been destroyed, and he put a grain of the precious dust in the soil at the root of each. He went up and down the Shire in this labor, but if he paid special attention to Hobbiton and Bywater, no one blamed him. And at the end he found that he still had a little of the dust left. So he went to the 3-farthing stone, which is as near the center of the Shire as no matter, and cast it in the air with his blessing. The little silver nut he planted in the party field where the tree had once been, and he wondered what would come of it. All through the winter he remained as patient as he could, and tried to restrain himself from going round constantly to see if anything was happening.
I can totally see that.
Totally, yeah.
Like,
he's so excited, you know?
Is there a tiny little bud yet? Is anything growing?
Yeah.
Oh, man, Sam. So, going back to the beginning, after tearing down those ugly buildings, and they did that all by Yule, which is pretty impressive, and then rebuilding the hobbit holes, the worst damage still remains, and that's the trees that have been cut down all over the Shire. And as we've observed now a few times, that was done not because they needed fuel for fires, not because they needed wood for building, but simply because Sharky wanted to do more damage.
Yeah. And like he said last chapter, I have already done much that you will find it hard to mend or undo in your lives, and it will be pleasant to think of that and set it against my injuries.
Man, the more I think about it, the more petty and nasty that is.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just happy to see you suffer. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I want. Because I'm so miserable at what's happened to me that I just want to see you suffer.
Oh.
It doesn't restore me. It does not make me whole. But
No, it does nothing to fix my situation. But I think it's just another reminder that Gandalf was 100% right when he said that he is withered. Yeah, he is beyond hope, which, like we observed at the time, is pretty amazing for Gandalf to say that somebody's beyond hope.
That's very true. Yep, and we did talk about that.
This is the guy who kept telling Frodo, you Gollum, don't kill him.
Even Gollum is not beyond hope, but Saruman at the end is beyond hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was this damage, the destruction of the trees, this more than the lost and damaged homes, more than even the mill. That's what hurt Sam the most.
Absolutely. And after all, like Saruman intended, this is going to take generations to heal. But that's when Sam finally remembers Galadriel's gift to him. He'd been so busy that it and their adventures really hadn't come to mind at all. That's how things go. You're busy getting the work done. But we should go back to that gift. I'm going to read that passage. For you, little gardener and lover of trees, she said to Sam, I have only a small gift. She put into his hand a little box of plain gray wood, unadorned save for a single silver rune upon the lid. Here is set G for Galadriel, she said, but also it may stand for garden in your tongue. In this box there is earth from my orchard, and such blessing as Galadriel has still to bestow is upon it. It will not keep you on your road, nor defend you against any peril. But if you keep it and see your home again at last, then perhaps it may reward you. Though you should find all barren and laid waste, there will be few gardens in Middle-earth that will bloom like your garden if you sprinkle this earth there. Then you may remember Galadriel and catch a glimpse far off of Lorien that you have seen only in our winter. For our spring and our summer are gone by, and they will never be seen on earth again, save in memory. Man.
I love that. And I mean, again, it's Galadriel. We should expect her to have foresight, but it's so lovely that she saw this and she knew that Sam was going to need this, and that's lovely.
Yeah. And I think it also, I remember this because the gift giving came at the very end, so it came after the mirror. So she saw what Sam saw. She saw that devastation and saw how it impacted him. And I'm sure that had
at a minimum, that's how she knew. She may have seen it elsewhere too, but at a minimum, that's where she saw it. Yeah.
And I think knowing how much that hit home for him, maybe shaped what she chose to give him as a gift. I kind of like to think that, at least.
I think that's true. I think you're right on.
Yeah.
So he, having suddenly remembered this, he brings the box out and he shows it to Merry and Pippin and Frodo. I like this. They're called the Travelers.
The Travelers,
now. Another great name for a band or an insurance company.
Or an insurance company. I love that. Well played, sir. Yeah.
Thank you. And Frodo says, yeah, I wondered when you would think of that. like was Frodo thinking of it the whole time?
Come on, Frodo.
Right.
Things that would have been nice to know yesterday.
Yesterday. Maybe Frodo's forgotten about it too. And he's just like, Sam never mentioned it.
I wondered when any of us would think of it, but I just mentioned you, Sam.
But the way Frodo says it, it does kind of sound like, I wondered when you were going to think of that.
I've been thinking about that
Finally,
for a few days.
I've been waiting.
When you'd get around to it.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Frodo.
It's like, dude, come on. I've been a little busy. What have you been doing? All you did was sign some papers to change the number of the sheriffs.
Exactly. You've just been laying off sheriffs all over the place.
Right. You just came in the Bobs and laid everybody off, and I'm sitting here doing work.
Exactly. I'm getting jobs done every day. I'm rolling down to Home Depot, getting like 40 laborers, and we're tearing down buildings.
Tearing down and building. And
this is work, man. I'm hearing the Home Depot theme in my head now,
Yeah. Those buckets. Get some buckets, Sam.
There you go. You're welcome to sponsor the show. Big companies like and Lowe's. If you prefer to mention you instead, just write us a check. We're happy to hear it.
You guys also have great buckets.
You do. They're blue, and I like them too. Blue's a great color. So when Sam finally opens this box and we get off the whole idea of one of these companies sponsoring us, watch Ace Hardware come in and say, no, we'll take the show.
Right.
Red is better than either blue or orange, dang it.
That's right.
So when Sam finally opens it, we see the content that Galadriel described. Earth from my orchard, she said. Well, that earth is a fine gray dust, and in the middle is that single small nut with a silver shell. That's what shale means.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the drafts, that silver shale was actually like a nut or dried berry, and it had a golden yellow color. Interesting.
That's right. And Sam sees this, and he's a little befuddled. He's wondering, like, what can I do with this?
Yeah.
What am I going to do with this?
Exactly.
And the hobbits each give him different advice. So let's talk about the different advice they give him. Pippin, first of all, suggests, just throw it up into the air and let the wind do the job. Now, that would heavily benefit Bag End and utterly ignore whatever part of the Shire happens to be upwind on that particular day.
I know.
Thanks a lot, say the people of Mitchell Delving.
Exactly. Let alone like Buckland or, the entire rest of the Shire. Great job.
Yeah.
Mary, little more scientific approach. He suggests a small patch test, right? Choose a single location as a nursery, conduct an experiment. That's actually not a bad idea if Sam wants to approach this methodically. You could do, all right, let's do a row where we put 1 grain of dust in each. Let's do a row where we do 2 grains of dust and see if there's a difference and measure that difference. Got quantified spreadsheets,
And then they could do the thing where they speak Elvish to one row and they'll speak Orcish to another. Yeah, and see if that changes anything. Do like a little Mythbusters experiment with it.
I can see it now. I love that.
Of course, it's Mr. Herblore Nerd who comes up with this idea. Like,
right? Yeah, that's right. He's the one who wrote Herblore of the Shire. I'm trying to enunciate the H now.
You're doing a better job than I am.
Respect for my friends. Yes, I love that. You're right. 100%. That makes sense that Mary would do that.
He's totally the botany geek here.
That's right. He's going to like crossbreed them and,
Right. Yeah. We're going to graft some stuff here. And like, I don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm just saying things.
You're just making up words.
Yeah. But anyway, neither of these two ideas appeal to Sam because he feels, and I love this, he feels like his job is to help all the people who are suffering in the Shire. And he can't be selfish. And he can't also just like leave it up to random chance with the wind or, do this whole scientific experiment. Although he does have the permission, so to speak, of Galadriel to do just that if he wanted to be selfish. Her words actually were, though you should find all barren and laid waste, there will be few gardens in Middle-earth that will bloom like your garden if you sprinkle this earth there.
Exactly.
So she's actually contemplating that he would just use this for himself.
Yeah.
It's a reward for you. You can do what you want with this.
Absolutely. But Sam is who Sam is, and he wants to act selflessly, as he has throughout the story, really. And here, that selflessness leads him to want to contribute to the good of the Shire as a whole. That brings Frodo into the conversation. His suggestion is that Sam use his own wits and knowledge in combination with the gift to enhance his work. And this is really good advice. I love this. Yeah. Don't rely on the magic alone, Sam. Combine it with your personal knowledge, your experience. This gift was given to you because Galadriel saw that you were a gardener and lover of trees.
Yeah.
This is your gift, Sam.
I love that. Don't just trust to the magic. Use your
Right.
own knowledge. Use your own
Yeah.
wisdom in how to use this and make the most out of this.
Exactly. Use it as an enhancement rather than a replacement. Yeah.
Yeah. It's another one of those, in a way, this is kind of like an earthly free will versus fate thing. Don't just leave it all up to fate. Don't leave it all up to higher powers, to magic, to supernatural forces.
Yeah.
Yes, use that to enhance your own abilities.
But you have knowledge. You have skills. Yeah. Use those and then bring the magic alongside to supplement. Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And Frodo also suggests, I think this is great. He says, use it sparingly. He imagines that every single grain of the dust has some value, and he's clearly right. The next few paragraphs are going to reveal that he is exactly right.
Every grain has value. Every grain is
great.
Where'd you get that tree from?
Grain is wasted. Yeah.
Galadriel gets quite irate. Actually, Sam would get quite irate. Yeah.
Sam would get quite irate. I want to talk about this. I don't want to spoil later in the episode, but we've got a question in the mailbag later about whether Frodo has some hint of foresight in some moments. Do you think that maybe Frodo has a little bit of foresight here, or is this just pure wisdom that comes from Frodo's sort of elevated status?
That's a good question. I certainly think the first part is just his wisdom. He knows Sam and he knows Sam well.
Yeah.
And he knows that Sam has knowledge and expertise as a gardener.
Right.
And that is something that he's been working on his entire life, right? I mean, his father has been the gardener and now he's doing it. So this is really running in his veins. So that part, for sure, to me at least, feels like Frodo acknowledging who Sam is, what his strengths are, and how he can use Galadriel's gift as a way to support that. But there is some, I think maybe a hint of foresight when he talks about using it sparingly, because you think about it, what if he's using it too sparingly? What if it required a teaspoonful worth of earth to do any good? Then he's literally wasting every single grain.
That's true.
Because none of them are going to reach the threshold of being, effective.
Right.
So part of me feels like Frodo's getting a little bit of insight here.
Yeah.
That says, yes, every single grain has value and you will get something even if you go down to that level of distribution.
Yeah. I kind of think so too. And maybe it's not true foresight as to knowing what would happen, but maybe you said insight. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just a deep insight of the nature of elvish things that he has because he's an elf friend. And he knows that this is how the elves would do it. This is how an elvish orchard soil would work.
That's a very good point. You wouldn't need a whole lot of it. You would, just a tiny bit will do. Yeah.
Yeah.
A little dab will do you.
Little dab will do you.
Yeah.
So Sam follows Frodo's advice, not just his advice to use it sparingly, but also his advice that you talked about, it using his own existing skills and experience. And he plants a sapling wherever a significant tree had been cut down.
Man, and he had to do that all across the Shire.
All over the
Shire. That's a huge tract of land, if you will, to use another Python line. I mean, we know that it is... I'm trying to remember the size of it, but I want to say it's over 100 miles east to west and north to south. I want to say 120 is what comes to mind.
That,
I think 120. So it is massive, and he's got to go wherever a significant tree was felled, plant a sapling, but with a single grain of that dust, and being very careful not to spill any. That would be
right.
Oops.
Be really careful with that box.
Yeah, seriously. Now, sure, maybe he did a little bit more in Bywater and Hobbiton. I think he can be forgiven for that. It's his home.
And nobody
area.
Begrudges him that.
No, nobody would. But just one grain for every sapling.
Yeah.
Just one grain, Vasily.
Nicely done.
A little Hunt for Red October, really subtle there.
My gosh. Man, I haven't seen that movie, man.
Oh, I love that movie. I would have liked to have seen Montana. I mean, man, so
Sam
good.
Neill. Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, he uses one single grain at each sapling, and then he follows Pippin's suggestion with the leftovers. He goes to the 3 farthing stone, and then he does the Pippin thing of just tossing the excess into the wind. At this point, he has used enough logically. He has used his skills. He has done the most he can with it. Now the rest of it just going to leave it up to chance, if chance you call it.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, the line about the 3 farthing stone, we actually have referenced that before in trying to solve some of our map questions. The stone being as near the center of the Shire as no matter. Talked about that as part of the issue with the measurement of the Shire. And if you want more on that, go back to about the middle of episode 322 for our discussion on that.
And then finally, after planting the saplings and using the dust, then he takes that silver nut and he plants it where the party tree had been.
That's right.
And then he patiently waited, or maybe not so patiently waited.
Exactly. I need to find
watching that pot to boil.
Seriously.
But he waited through the winter just to see what happens in the spring.
Man.
And this is exactly where you're going to pick up.
Oh, I love this passage. Just one of my favorite passages in the entire story. Here we go.
Me too.
Spring surpassed his wildest hopes. His trees began to sprout and grow as if time was in a hurry and wished to make 1 year do for 20. In the party field, a beautiful young sapling leaped up. It had silver bark and long leaves and burst into golden flowers in April. It was indeed a malorn, and it was the wonder of the neighborhood. In after years, as it grew in grace and beauty, it was known far and wide, and people would come long journeys to see it, the only malorn west of the mountains and east of the sea, and one of the finest in the world. Altogether, 1420 in the Shire was a marvelous year. Not only was there wonderful sunshine and delicious rain, in due times and perfect measure, but there seemed something more, an air of richness and growth, and a gleam of a beauty beyond that of mortal summers that flicker and pass upon this middle earth. All the children born or begotten in that year, and there were many, were fair to see and strong, and most of them had a rich golden hair that had before been rare among hobbits. The fruit was so plentiful that young hobbits very nearly bathed in strawberries and cream. And later, they sat on the lawns under the plum trees and ate until they had made piles of stones like small pyramids, or the heaped skulls of a conqueror, and then they moved on. And no one was ill, and everyone was pleased, except those who had to mow the grass. In the South Farthing, the vines were laden, and the yield of leaf was astonishing. And everywhere there was so much corn that at harvest every barn was stuffed. The North Farthing barley was so fine that the beer of 1420 malt was long remembered and became a byword. Indeed, a generation later, one might hear an old gaffer in an inn, after a good pint of well-earned ale, put down his mug with a sigh. Ah, that was proper 1420, that was. Oh, man.
Oh, that's so great.
Makes my heart smile to read that. Oh,
it's such a wonderful passage.
It is.
Let's talk about it, because it's just beautiful. Just the renewal and the restoration that we see here is lovely.
Beautiful stuff. Yeah.
As we said, Sam was not so patiently waiting to see what was going to happen in the spring. And man, was his impatience, whatever, rewarded, right?
It sure was, yeah.
The spring exceeded even Sam's wildest hopes. And the specific details here are really something. I mean, it is clear that this is more than just the land responding to the passing of the shadow, as we've talked about in other locations, isn't it?
That's true. Yeah, we have talked about that a lot, really. I mean, everything from the field of Carmallen all the way through the way that they saw the land differently, even in many partings as they were making their way back up towards Bree and towards the Shire. But yeah, this is more than that. I mean, we get this immediate and rapid growth of trees. The text implies basically 20 years of growth in 1 year. And then the new tree in the party field.
Wow.
On April 6th, the date isn't here in the text, but it's actually in the Tale of Years in Appendix B. On April 6th, the tree with the silver bark burst into golden flowers. Congratulations, Sam. You have a baby Malorn.
Oh, just what I always wanted.
Yeah, well, now you can set up shop, $20 a ticket, sell annual passes.
Right, yeah. You can sell T-shirts. And
there you go.
I mean, it did. It grew and it became a famous thing for people to come and see. It's the only Malorn between the Misty Mountains and the sea.
That's right. Come and see the only Malorn. No, I can see that. Like a carnival hawker,
Right. Yeah. But that's exactly what it was in a non-cheesy, non-tourist trappy way.
Of course.
And though it is said that people would come long journeys to come see it, one has to imagine that those people don't include men, except for the first few years. Because remember, 7 years from now, the big people are going to be forbidden to enter the Shire by King Elisar.
That's right. Sort of a, but your 4 fastest ships, you mean? Moment,
Well, yes, of course, all but those.
Yeah. What do you mean those? Yes. Yeah. So
you never
people
sent
would
them.
come long journeys, just not human people.
Just not human people.
Well, we read in the Tale of Years that it's in 1427. That's the same year, by the way, that Mayor Whitfoot resigns and Sam begins his first term as mayor. No, I know. The text says he actually resigned, but come on, you're in office for 7 terms. Did you really resign? Right. I don't know.
Or were there 2 very tall hobbits holding imported swords
and
to
Pippin
you?
Kind of just knocking on the door. Yeah. Either that or maybe Will Whitfoot now has a much larger house than he used to and is very comfortable in retirement.
Could be. He wanted to spend more time with his family.
Either way, Sam has begun his first term as mayor in 1427. And that's the year that King Elisar issues an edict that men are not to enter the Shire, and he makes it a free land under the protection of the Northern Scepter.
Yeah. That's very cool.
Yeah, really amazing stuff there.
And so that means that all this beauty, all this renewal is going to be just for the hobbits, isn't it?
Yeah, I love that. Which is totally appropriate because their suffering was unique.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's maybe not as great as the suffering of some of the other people, but it was in their way, what they experienced. And now this renewal is theirs specifically as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I also love this. This description of spring actually put me in mind of something that you talked about just a few chapters ago. This was actually in episode 321 on the Steward and the King. Shortly after the eagle came, bearing tidings from the west, Sarah read this. The days that followed were golden, and spring and summer joined and made revel together in the fields of Gondor.
Oh, I love that phrase. Spring and summer joined and made revel together. That's beautiful. It is just spring. I mean, the Malorn blooms on April 6th, so it's very much just spring. But it sure has a similar feel here. And I have to say, I think it's because Tolkien placed such great importance on seasons in his story. Like Sarah and I observed back then at the time, the seasons were very important to him. There's a reason why the hobbits first left the Shire in the fall. There's a reason why they left Rivendell on December 25th. There's a reason why March 25th was the date of the fall of Barad-dûr.
Right.
The dates and seasons were very important to him in telling this story.
Absolutely. And you quoted this then, but it's worth mentioning again. Tolkien explained this to Forrest J. Ackerman in letter number 210. Remember, this is the letter.
Any reading from letter 210 is worth mentioning again.
Oh, absolutely. For those who don't remember, this is the letter where Tolkien just eviscerates the infamous Zimmerman script. And in that he wrote, seasons are carefully regarded in the original. The main action begins in autumn and passes through winter to a brilliant spring. This is basic to the purport and tone of the tale. The contraction of time and space in Zimmerman destroys that. His arrangements would, for instance, land us in a snowstorm while summer was still in.
And that's the thing. To Tolkien, these things were important, and that's why I think it shines so much when we see these moments that really lay out, the time of year, the weather, the environment. And boy,
all that attention to detail that makes the story feel so much more real, right?
Exactly. Makes the world feel like a genuine place.
Yeah.
But man, 1420, that year is a great year for the Shire. Now, it's Shire Reckoning 1420, but that is also Third Age 3020. So if you're keeping track on that calendar. And again, we get to a list of circumstances, coming back to something we said earlier, that tend to make one think that this is much, much, much more than just the land responding to the destruction of Sauron and the Ring, or even the land responding to Saruman being cleared away and the ruffians being removed.
Yeah, there's definitely something more going on here. I mean, look, we've got perfect weather. Yeah. We've got sun and rain exactly as what you need when you need it. and in the right amounts. It's never too much or too little. It's perfect weather.
Literally perfect.
Yeah, truly. Even the air felt different. There was richness and growth in the air.
Mm.
And this next line, I think, gives us a hint as to where all this is coming from. The line says, "A gleam of beauty beyond that of mortal summers."
I think you hit the nail on the head right there. The beauty beyond that of mortal summers points us right back to Galadriel's gifts. And that's when we go back to what she said to Sam. Then you may remember Galadriel and catch a glimpse far off of Lorien that you have seen only in our winter. For our spring and our summer, and now we come back to that spring and summer making revel together. Our spring and our summer are gone by, and they will never be seen on earth again, save in memory. I think that's what we're seeing here. We're getting a glimpse, a gleam of elven or immortal beauty directly from Galadriel Lorien. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And it is an elvish thing. And because of that, I'm thinking of it as a longeval summer. It's an extra long summer of renewal.
It's not serially longeval, because then there would never be a fall or a winter. Yeah.
Right. But it is long lived, and it is truly elvish. It is truly enchanted.
Beautiful.
We got more amazing things that happened to talk about. All the kids born that year were beautiful and strong.
Okay, that just makes me feel bad for the kids born in Shire Reckoning 1419 and 1421. Like,
none of those kids are getting on the football team. Sorry.
Seriously, they're not getting any dates. Their lives.
Homecoming queen. Sorry, you're not getting it.
No, it's all the 1420.
You're not chosen for the school play. Sorry.
No.
But there's a lot of kids born or begotten in 1420. Yep. When the weather's perfect. I don't know. I mean,
no, I was going to say, isn't it usually the other way around? It's usually, oh man, it's been raining, and 9 months later,
if it's raining outside, you stay inside, and then you just get bored. And what are you going to
do? Read a book?
Right. We're not going to do that. Certainly not hobbits.
Sam and Rosie, you'd like to have a word. 13 words, as a matter of fact. Anyway.
Enough about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of kids. And most of the kids born or begotten in 1420, we're told, had golden hair, which we're told specifically was rare for hobbits. Now, let's go back to the prologue and find out a little bit more about that. In the prologue, we actually read about the three strains of hobbits, if you will. And the Falahides were the least numerous strain, and they were described as fairer of skin and also of hair.
Yeah.
So the blonde hair would come from that Falahide strain, but they were the least numerous, which explains why blonde hair was rare.
That's right. Now, back in episode 314, I read something from the nomenclature that we should bring up here. It was for the entry marigold, which Tolkien says he used because it is suitable as a name in English, and because containing gold and referring to a golden flower, it suggests there was a Falahide strain in Sam's family, which, increased by the favor of Galadriel, became notable in his children, especially Eleanor, but also Goldilocks, a name sometimes given to flowers of buttercup kind, who married the heir of Beregrentuk. Increased by the favor of Galadriel.
I mean, I think it's undeniable here that this is evidence that this supernatural burst of growth, accompanied by this unusual beauty and blonde hair in the kids born this year, this has everything to do with Galadriel's gift. I mean, 100%. Tolkien is saying at least part of it clearly.
He's trying to spell it out for us. Just connect the dots, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, more good things, right? I mean, because the supernatural list of wild and amazing good stuff continues. We've got the excess of strawberries and plums, along with presumably all the other fruits. Just no other ones are mentioned. Yeah. So fruit not appearing in this film. Also no illnesses. And then almost everybody is happy. And that's good. We like that.
Except for those who had to mow the grass.
I actually think they're probably pretty happy too, because they're getting paid for the work.
They're getting paid. That's right.
That's right. It's an ill wind that blows nobody no good.
Right. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, me too. It's good stuff.
And then the growth in the South Farthing means agricultural prosperity. We've got more grapes and wine. We've got more leaf, pipeweed, of course. And then we've got an excess of corn. Now, as we talked about before on the show, corn here is not likely to be what we call corn in the United States. It's not likely to be maize. In episode 170, we pointed out that to Tolkien, corn didn't necessarily mean the thing we call corn, the yellow cob with the little kernels that always get stuck in your teeth. Any edible plant seed like barley, wheat, oats is corn.
Right.
Corn just means the primary grain crop grown in a particular region. So in some places it would be wheat. In others it might be oats or barley. What he's talking about here is edible grain of some kind.
Right. And one of those grains clearly is barley. And the barley of the North Farthing that year was legend. Wait for it. Dairy, making the beer of that year a byword and giving us that really cool, I love it. You can see it cinematically on the screen, this flash forward to a gaffer in a generation's time. I'm seeing Sam as an old man with his 13 kids at the table in a generation's time, claiming that a good ale was a proper 1420.
Now, 1420.
I happen to be accompanied by a beer expert, if you will. So, Shawn, tell us a little bit about your beer geekness in relation to this idea of a proper 1420.
Well, thank you.
You're
beer
welcome.
Geek is fine. I don't know about expert, but I have brewed my own beer. And so I know a little bit about ingredients.
That's got to put you in a pretty distinguished class right there, brewing your own beer.
Well, thank you. I pride myself on my ability to do that. If there's ever a zombie apocalypse, at least I won't run out of beer.
I mean, you drank it and didn't die, so that's...
right. There's that.
There's success right there.
So I did something right. But I can tell you, I mean, I know a bit about the ingredients that go into beer, and I can tell you good quality barley malt really does make a difference. And especially... given the kinds of beers that hobbits would be drinking, which I'm assuming are like British style pub ales. They're not very low alcohol. They're not really crazy hoppy like American IPAs. They're not really, really dark like an Irish stout or a porter. They're kind of in the middle color wise. They're low alcohol, which means that there's nothing to hide bad malt under. If you start with a low quality barley malt, you are going to taste it in those beers.
Interesting.
Whereas you can hide it. You know, if you make an IPA, you put a ton of hops in it.
All the hops, right.
That's all you taste, and you can hide poor quality malt.
Plus a higher alcohol content hides it as well.
In porters and stouts, you've got a lot of darker barley in there that'll give it either a roasty flavor, coffee, chocolate, something like that. And that also will hide poor quality base malt. But again, with like sort of everyday easy drinking beers like hobbits would definitely be drinking, you are going to taste that malt. And you would know what proper 1420 was. If you knew what that 1420 malt tasted like, you would recognize it when you drank it. And I love that.
That is awesome. I love that. So in the South Farthing, the vines were laden and the yield of leaf was astonishing. And everywhere there was so much mail that at harvest every mailbag was stuffed. Shawn, besides your everlasting patience for these segues, what does Barliman have for us today?
All right, man. Well, we've got a bunch of questions in the bag that relate to later moments in this chapter, so we're going to have to start getting to them now. So we're skipping ahead a little bit. But Nat G wrote into us with this question. He said, when explaining to Sam that he cannot sail west with him, Frodo tells Sam that he's got responsibilities, and namely his wife and his daughter. And then Frodo names several children, ending with, and perhaps more that I cannot see. Now, Nat is asking a question that we alluded to earlier in this episode.
Yeah.
Can Frodo really see these children? Is he guessing at the possibility of other children, or does he have true foresight? Because, like so many heroes, he is granted it as he nears his death.
Ooh, morbid thought, but good question, actually, Nat.
But true. Yeah.
Now, we're going to get to this moment in a couple of weeks. Like you said, a lot of the questions we have related to this chapter are actually related to the very end of the chapter. So we're going to bring some in a little ahead of time. But as we wrap up season 8 in the very last episode of the season, we're going to read this part where Frodo names the next 5 of Sam's kids, almost, but not quite in exact order. He says, and Frodo lad will come, and Rosie lass, and Merry, and Goldilocks, and Pippin, and perhaps more that I cannot see. Now, who were Sam and Rosie's kids after Eleanor the Fair was born in 1421? Frodo in 1423, followed by Rose in 1425, then Merry in 1427.
And then at this point, Frodo's foresight, if that's what was going on here, got mixed up, because then he said Goldilocks and Pippin. But they actually came in reverse order. Pippin actually was born in 1429 and then Goldilocks in 1431. Now, what about the more that I cannot see? Well, that'll be Hamfast, Daisy, Primrose, Bilbo, Ruby, Robin, and Tolman. My goodness, you have been productive.
Yeah.
Over the next 10 years.
Whoa, man.
So, all told, 13 kids in a 21-year span. And can we just give the MVP award to Rosie for this,
seriously,
please?
Rosie right now deserves
Rosie Cotton deserves a medal for 13 kids in a 21-year span.
My goodness.
Thank you, Rose Cotton.
Now, that mix-up of Goldilocks and Pippin is actually, and this is so interesting, explicitly mentioned in the epilogue as well. Now, there, Tolkien writes this. Sam had been reading aloud, as was usual, from a big red book on a stand, and on a stool beside him sat Eleanor. And she was a beautiful child, more fair-skinned than most hobbit maids and more slender, and she was now running up into her teens. And there was Frodo lad on the hearthrug, in spite of his name, as good a copy of Sam as you could wish. And Rose, Mary, and Pippin were sitting in chairs much too big for them. Goldilocks had gone to bed, for in this Frodo's foretelling had made a slight error, and she came after Pippin, and was still only 5, and the red book rather too much for her yet. But she was not the last of the line, for Sam and Rose seemed likely to rival old Gerontius Took in the number of their children as successfully as Bilbo had passed his age. There you go.
Well, now that's interesting. Until we looked this up in the epilogue, I was actually ready to chalk this up to a more simple answer. I was just thinking maybe Frodo wasn't predicting anything, that maybe Sam was just following what Frodo had said.
Yeah.
Imagine that, Frodo's just making up names that, well, these sound like names Sam would give the kids that he has with Rosie. I mean, we know that Frodo was what Sam wanted to name their first child if it was a boy. So that's an easy one. The others seem to fit. I mean, if he's going to name the first boy Frodo, he probably would name the next 2 boys after Merry and Pippin. So
that's fair.
I kind of thought this was just, okay, Frodo just kind of said these things. And then as the kids came along, Sam's like, oh yeah, these were great names that Frodo said that one day. And he's just using the names that Frodo had mentioned. So kind of fulfilling a prophecy, but it wasn't really a prophecy at all. It's just Sam doing an idea, Sam using an idea that Frodo kind of put in his head. Basically.
Exactly. And that's what I thought as well. But that epilogue does change that a little bit. The idea that for in this, Frodo's foretelling had made a slight error. At the same time, I still kind of think that. I mean, here's the deal. I don't know if it was really foretelling or not, but Frodo here just rattled off names in a pattern. Look at the pattern. It's a boy, girl, alternating list. He's giving Sam a list of names to choose from. Sam and Rosie's kids just didn't happen to come in that gender alternating order, so he still named them the way that Frodo had listed them. But let's go ahead and talk about this. How much, if any, was Frodo foreseeing, and how much was Sam just naming the kids after the names that Frodo gave him?
It could be another case of insight as opposed to foresight. Maybe Frodo knows what Sam would name his kids.
I think that actually has a lot to do with it. Of course he's going to name his other boys Merry and Pippin. If he's going to name one Frodo, he's going to name the others Merry and Pippin. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so maybe, again, it's just like the advice with the dust. It's not, it's just, that makes sense. Frodo's very wise at this point.
He is. That's true.
He probably can see enough of Sam's nature, knowing him as well as he does, to be able to say things like this in a way that seems like foresight.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it.
That's kind of where I'm leaning on it.
Yeah, I think I can land there as well. I had a hard time believing this as being some actual, death-related foresight like we've seen before. I mean, Nat makes a point that throughout the Legendarium, we see characters who are near to death.
That's true. That is true.
Being given that extra foresight. But I don't think that's what's happening here. Not quite yet. I mean, yes, at that moment, he is approaching the Havens. He's about to leave. His mortal life isn't about to end yet. He's still going to be physically alive when he arrives at Tol Eressëa.
Right, he's going to go to the Undying Lands.
Yeah. And we'll talk later. I'm sure one of the other questions is what happens to him when he gets there, and we'll discuss that.
We will definitely be talking about that in a couple of minutes.
We most surely will. But I don't think he's quite close enough to death to be seeing things like that. I'm thinking of things like Feanor, who looked at Thangorodrim, with the foreknowledge of death and knew that we're never going to overcome them. And then he still said, sorry, sons, you got to do it anyway.
You got to do it anyway. Yeah.
He's a total jerk. I don't think this falls into that same category, I think you're right. He knows Sam intimately well. And Sam has already given him a clue. We were going to name our son Frodo, but it's not a son, it's a daughter. I think with that piece of information, Frodo knows that the next boys are going to be Merry and Pippin after Frodo. So you're going to name the boys Frodo and Merry and Pippin. And you're going to name the daughters flowery names, and that's exactly what he does. So, Rosie Lass and Goldilocks. And
maybe some of the flower names are Frodo just kind of making up names. And maybe this is where Sam is like, oh, that's a pretty name. I hadn't thought about that.
I mean, there's only two.
There might be a little of that.
He mentions Rosie and Goldilocks, and that's, and of course, Rosie, of course, he's going to name one of them after his wife. I mean, that makes sense. Right. That's not an uncommon thing for hobbits to do. So I think there's a little bit of that, a little bit of knowledge of Sam, a little bit of just wisdom and experience, and not so much magical insight or, the foreknowledge of
the foresight of death.
Yeah. That's
I think that makes sense.
Well. All right. Well, folks, that wraps it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. But please come back again next week when Sam and Rosie get married.
I love a good wedding, especially a Hobbit wedding. They have really good food at those.
Yeah, they do. That's right.
But folks, Alan and I want to thank the members of Team PPP. That's our editor, Jordan Rennells, our Barliman, Becca Davis, social media manager, Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator, Katie McKenna, graphic artist, Megan Collins, and website guru, Phil Dean.
And please take a minute to check out the website, prancingponypodcast.com. It's where you're going to find show notes, outtakes, Prancing Pony ponderings, and our online storefront where you can get PPP merch, including some very cool chapter-specific artwork from Megan.
And please take a moment to visit our library page. The Prancing Pony Podcast has always been about the books, so if you're interested in a book that we've mentioned on the show, you'll find a link for it in our library. And we do get a small amount of compensation when you make your purchase, and we thank you for that.
We do indeed. And we also want to thank our patrons at the Kierdan's contribution tier. I'll start with DeMay in Alaska, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Joseph in Michigan, Kathy from North Carolina, Carlos in California, Brian in the UK, Jerry from Washington, Joe in Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, Ben in Minnesota, Anthony in Texas, Zaksu in Illinois, Sarah in New Jersey, Joshua in Massachusetts, Lucy in Texas, Keith in Alabama, and Erica in Texas.
There's also Carson in Oklahoma, Vivian in California, James in Massachusetts, Ann in Kentucky, Shawn in New Jersey, Mason in California, Maureen from Massachusetts, John in Japan, Olivia in London, Robert in Arizona, Nick in Wisconsin, Lewis in South Carolina, Thomas in Germany, Craig in California, Bailey in Texas, Kevin in Massachusetts, another Paul in Colorado, and Julie in Washington. Thank you all so very much for your support.
Indeed, thank you.
And make sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe now through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or whatever your favorite podcast app is.
And one last thing as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, your proper 1420 to Barliman at theprancingponypodcast.com. And if you want your voice literally heard, well, just send us audio of your question. You can visit podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
Just please be sure to still email the question to Barliman, though.
Yeah.
And even though Barliman's been a lot more reliable lately, there is still a lot of mail to sort through. But we'll try to get to you just as soon as we're able.
As always, though, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
Farewell, friends.